The storm riders. The prairie stretched wide and empty, a sea of gold and brown under the weight of an endless sky. For nearly 7 years, Abigail Hayes had lived here, alone, tucked away in a small cabin her late father had built on the edge of the Texas frontier. She was 30 now, though her solitude made her feel older, carved by wind, sun, and silence. Her days were filled with chores, tending the small vegetable patch, mending fences, hauling water, and keeping wolves away from her scrawny goats. Nights were long, lit only by lantern flame and the mournful sound of wind clawing at the shutters. She hadn't seen another human soul in months. Abigail had chosen this life, though it was partly chosen for her. Her fiancé, Thomas, had died of fever on the wagon trail. Her parents were gone before she turned 20. With nowhere else to go, she had remained where the land still remembered her family's sweat and blood. She often spoke aloud to the wind, imagining her words drifting toward heaven. That night, the sky roared with a storm. The clouds gathered thick and black, lightning splitting the heavens. Abigail secured the shutters and stoked her fire high, muttering prayers that the roof would hold. Just as the first sheets of rain slammed the cabin, the sound of hoofbeats cut through the storm. Abigail froze, hand tightening around the rifle resting by the door. She rarely saw riders out here, and those she did see were often trouble. Then came the shadows, 7 figures on horseback, massive and dark against the flashes of lightning. They rode not like settlers but like predators, straight-backed, sure-handed, fierce. As they drew near, she realized what they were. Comanche. Her breath caught. She had heard the stories, warriors swift as hawks, ruthless in battle. Women on the frontier whispered of raids, of cabins burned, of settlers never seen again. The riders slowed, their horses snorting steam into the night. One dismounted, tall as the doorframe itself, his black braids gleaming with rain. He lifted his hand in peace. "Shelter," he said, his voice deep, accented but clear in English. "We seek shelter from storm." Abigail's heart hammered. 7 of them, one of her. She could slam the door, bar it, and pray they rode past, but 7 men could smash through her walls if they wanted. And they had not come with weapons drawn. She lifted her chin. "This is my home," she said, voice steady though her knees trembled. "What guarantee have I that you mean me no harm?" The warrior glanced back at his brothers, then stepped forward, slowly, deliberately. "We are not raiders," he said. "We ride to trade at San Antonio. Storm caught us. We ask only fire, roof, and rest." For a moment, Abigail stood silent, the wind howling around them. Something in the man's eyes struck her, not cruelty, but weariness. Honesty, even. She lowered the rifle. "Bring your horses to the shed," she said. "You may come in. But know this, I keep my gun close." A flicker of respect crossed his face. He nodded once. "You are brave, white woman." "I am called Tahu." One by one, the Comanche dismounted, tall and broad, their presence filling her small clearing. They led their horses away, then ducked into her cabin. The room seemed suddenly too small for them, their frames casting shadows across the walls. The firelight revealed their faces, scarred, wind-burned, proud. They removed their weapons and laid them neatly by the door, as if to honor her rules. Abigail, still on edge, busied herself with fetching blankets, bread, and a pot of beans she had cooked earlier. Tahu spoke little, but his eyes followed her with quiet intensity. Unlike the others, he did not laugh or jostle. He carried himself like a man with burdens unseen. When she poured him stew, his voice was softer. "You live here alone?" "Yes," she said, meeting his gaze. "For 7 years." his brow furrowed. No husband, no children. Her throat tightened, but she lifted her chin. I manage well enough without either. Something like admiration flickered in his eyes. The storm raged on into the night, rattling the cabin walls. The Comanche, though restless, remained respectful, speaking in low voices. Abigail sat by the fire, rifle across her lap, though her eyelids grew heavy. And for the first time in years, she did not feel entirely alone. The warrior's choice expanded. The storm's remnants clung to the earth for days. Water pooled in low ground, the prairie grass bent heavy beneath droplets, and the cabin's roof still dripped where shingles had shifted. Abigail rose early, as always, but this morning her world looked different. The land had been cleansed, raw and glistening under the newborn sun. She thought the Comanche would be eager to leave, but their horses were restless and weak from the mud. Another day, Tahu explained, speaking for his men. His deep voice carried an authority that the others accepted without question. Abigail nodded, though her heart raced at the thought. Another day with them here. Another day where silence wouldn't be her only companion. Unexpected company. The men did not sit idle. They repaired the sagging fence, mended a corner of her roof, even cleared fallen branches from the yard. Abigail stood watching as two of them laughed, competing at who could split logs faster. She hadn't heard laughter in so long it startled her, breaking against her chest like music. Tahu, however, worked quietly. He carried water buckets, tended to the horses, and when her goats broke loose, he caught them with surprising gentleness. Abigail noticed how the animals trusted him immediately, how his large hands steadied without force. At midday, she brought out bread and honey. The men ate heartily, their eyes flashing with gratitude. Tahu accepted his portion carefully, his fingers brushing hers for the briefest second. Abigail's skin burned at the contact, though she quickly turned away. "You live like warrior," Tahu said after a while, nodding toward the woodpile she had chopped herself. "But alone." She bristled. "I've done it for 7 years. It isn't so hard." His gaze softened, a rare smile touching his lips. "Hard enough to carve your spirit into stone." Abigail blinked at him, taken aback. Few men had ever spoken to her like that, not with judgment, but with understanding. She found she couldn't meet his eyes, afraid he might read all the loneliness she tried to bury. The evening fire. That night, they roasted venison over her hearth. The scent filled the cabin, mingling with wood smoke. The men told stories in their own tongue, voices rising and falling like wind through canyons. Though she couldn't understand, she felt the rhythm, the life of it. Tahu sat beside her, close enough that she could feel his warmth. When the others laughed, his gaze often strayed toward her, as though her reactions mattered more than their tales. "Tell me," he said quietly when the laughter subsided, "why you stay here, where land is cruel and men do not come?" Abigail hesitated, hands twisting in her lap. "My father built this place. He poured his life into it. When he died, I couldn't abandon it. And after—" she swallowed hard. "After Thomas passed on the trail, there was nowhere else for me. So I stayed. This cabin, this land, it's all I have." Tahu's eyes softened, shadows dancing in their depths. "You are braver than most men I know." She gave a bitter laugh. "Or more foolish." "Not foolish," he said firmly. "You fight storm, hunger, wolves, silence. Alone. That is strength." His words wrapped around her like a blanket, warming a place in her chest that had been cold for too long. The morning ride. The next day dawned crisp and clear. The men prepared to ride, tightening saddles and packing gear. Abigail felt an ache in her chest, sharper than she expected. She told herself it was relief. They had brought no harm, but she would be safer when they were gone. Yet when she watched Tahu mount his horse, her throat tightened. He looked down at her for a long moment. "You live too much in silence," he said again, repeating his words from the night before. "A heart should not be so empty." Before she could respond, he nudged his horse forward. The others followed, their silhouettes shrinking against the horizon. Abigail stood in her doorway, the prairie wind curling around her, her rifle forgotten at her side. The return. 3 days later, as she tended her corn patch, hoofbeats thundered once more across the prairie. She spun, heart leaping into her throat. It was Tahu, alone. His figure rode tall and proud against the sinking sun, his black hair loose over his shoulders. When he dismounted, Abigail's knees nearly buckled, not from fear, but from something far more dangerous. "You came back," she whispered, voice trembling. "I said I would." His gaze held hers, steady as stone. "My brothers rode on. But he paused, searching for the right words. "I could not leave my spirit behind. And it was here, with you." Her breath caught. "Tahu." He stepped closer, the ground seeming to tremble beneath his weight. "You are strong, Abigail Hayes. Stronger than most warriors. But strength is not meant to be carried alone." For a moment, silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken truths. Then, slowly, Abigail reached out. Her fingers brushed his hand, rough and calloused from battle and hunt. He closed his around hers, warm and steady. In that touch lay a promise, fragile, dangerous, but real. The choice. That night, they sat by the fire together, the cabin smaller than ever. Abigail listened as Tahu spoke of his people, their hunts, their battles, their way of life. He told her of his burdens, of the wars that had taken brothers and left scars on his heart. "I am warrior," he said, staring into the flames. "But I am also man. I want more than blood and war." Abigail's throat tightened. "And what is it you want?" He turned, eyes burning with something that stole her breath. "You." The word hung between them, sharp as lightning. Abigail's heart raced. She had lived so long without touch, without love, she feared her body might break under the weight of it. And yet, when he leaned forward, she did not pull away. Their lips met, tentative at first, then deepening with a hunger born of years denied. The fire crackled, shadows danced, and for the first time in 7 years, Abigail's cabin felt like a home filled with life again. A new beginning. Morning light spilled across the cabin floor. Abigail woke to the sound of horses nickering outside. Tahu sat by the window, watching the horizon. "You could still go," she whispered. He turned, his expression calm but resolute. "I already chose. I go where my spirit leads. It leads me here." Tears stung her eyes, though she smiled. For the first time in years, she did not feel bound to this land by grief alone. She felt anchored by something new. By him. And as the prairie stretched wide and endless beyond her door, Abigail Hayes knew that her days of silence had ended. A warrior had come, not to take her land, not to steal her freedom, but to share her life. Together, they would face the storms.